Hey there, kiddos. Welcome back. This is Module 3, Lesson 3, Mod 3, Lesson 3. And our objective here is to add fractions with unlike units by creating equivalent fractions. So we're going to make like units. So it's really not hard, but it's kind of involved. So I'm going to show you some great notes that you can use to help you understand this concept. Now, adding fractions, I want you to remember this when things get complicated. Adding fractions is simply making sure the bottom number is the same, add across the top. That's what we're doing, okay? Now, why? Why do I have to have the number the same on the bottom? Because basically this is a label, okay? And it's like if I said I have one adult and then I'm going to add 3 adults, then we know we have 4 adults. But because the same units can be added. But let's say I have 1 child and 3 adults, and you might think, oh, well, is there a child rate for a movie ticket? Is there an adult rate? So sometimes it's hard to lump everybody in the same group because things can be different with this different label. So what we try to do is we try to say, no, any person who needs a ticket has to pay the same rate. So now we're calling them people instead of a child versus an adult. And so I have 1 person and then 3 more people, and that makes a total of 4 people. Now I can combine because I made like units. Now, take away the labels that are words and think about numbers. So if I have 1/2 plus 1/4, I know it's kind of messy here, but let's just focus on this first, 1/2 plus 1/4. What I need to do is I need to try to find a way to make the 2 and the 4 be the same. So we can do this thing called working with a scale factor. Don't be afraid. Scale factor. A factor is just a number you multiply, right? And scale means you're going to scale it up or scale it down. Like if you have a scale model of something, you can have a miniature or you can have one that's life size. So scale, up or down. So let's take our 1/2, and if we multiply it by a scale factor that helps us create an equivalent fraction, then we can do our adding, which is the business that we need to get to in the first place. So what happens when we change this? Well, if you multiply the bottom 2 numbers, you will always have a common denominator. So for example, if I just multiply the 4 and the 2 together, I will get 8. And then I can, when you look at this, 2 times 4, that's 8, and 4 times 1, that's 4. So I get 4/8, which is equivalent to a half. And then if I have 1/4 and I multiply 4 times 2, I get 8. And if I have 1 times 2, I get 2. And then I have 4 plus 2, and I get 6/8. Okay? So that's kind of what I want you to understand today about using this scale factor. Now, there's another way that you can use a scale factor if you say, well, I know that 4 is a multiple of 2. So instead of changing both of these fractions, maybe I'll just change one. I'll just turn the halves into fourths. Well, how can you do that? Well, you would choose a scale factor that will get you that 4. Okay, and you get to choose what the scale factor is. Kind of fun. So if I have 1/2 and I want to turn that into fourths, I can multiply by 2 halves. The important thing here is that whenever you create this 2 halves, remember, just like in the previous video, any fraction can be equal to 1 by putting the number over itself. So 2 halves is equal to 1, 7/7 is equal to 1, 4/4 is equal to 1, 10/10, and so on. So you can choose any number to be your scale factor to get you that 4. Okay? So for here, we have to have 2 halves to get us the 4. But in doing this, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. Now I have 2/4 plus 1/4, and I get 3/4. Now 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. How do I know that? Well, let's take a look at this. It's a little bit advanced, but I want you to understand fractions all the way through before we get into our equivalents today. If I take 6/8 and I realize that both numbers are divisible by 2, I could divide 6 by 2 and get 3, and divide 8 by 2 and get 4. And there's my 3/4, and it's equivalent to 6/8. Now that's kind of a lot of information. So let's focus a little bit more on what the lesson will have. The lesson is going to have you making a model. So here's our same problem, 1/2 and 1/4. So in the beginning on lesson 1, we were making these same models. Here was the 1/2, here was the 1/4. Remember that first we're going to make a vertical model, then we're going to lay the horizontal lines across. Lay over each model the other fraction pieces. It'll be easier when we get into the lesson. I'm not going to labor over this too much right now. Just know that this is what it's going to look like for your final problem. And when you do this laying over, you're creating equivalent pieces so we can add. And that's what we want to do. We want to have common denominators. Instead of 1/3 and 1/2, I want to make 6ths. And so when we lay the pieces over, and I'll show you in a minute, you will make 6ths by laying those pieces over. Now what happens when you no longer have a 1 on the top? Nothing, really. But you just have more shaded pieces. That's all. And we will be able to put those together. Even if you end up with an improper fraction, remember the big old noggin and the small body? If that's how your fraction looks, you can change it into the sum of a whole number and a fraction, just like we did in lesson 2. Okay? Lots of important notes. It's just really good stuff. All right, this is lesson 3. Get those pencils out. And, I got my piece of paper. Don't have to fiddle with the book anymore. So we're going to draw a rectangular fraction model to find the sum, and we're going to do something called simplify, if possible. So simplifying is making the numbers as small as possible in the fraction so that I don't have, say, something like 15/20. I could have 3/4. It's equivalent, so we're going to try to find some equivalents. So let's do the models. Here we go. 1/2, draw a box. Put a line down the middle, shade a half. There you go. You just did your first new thing. Put a plus in between and make another box. Now for this one, don't make your lines vertical because I want you to see we're going to create this model on top of the next one. So let's do horizontal here in 3 parts and shade one of them. You can shade the top, you can shade the bottom, you can shade the middle. It does not matter, but it can only be one. Okay? Now, I'm going to do this twice, but you only have to do it once. I want you to see what happens. Okay? If I have a 1/2 and I have a 1/3 and I take my fractional pieces and I lay them over the top, okay? So you start out looking like this, but let's take this one, and if I were to lift it up and put it on top of this one, it would look like that. Okay, I just put 2 lines right across. Okay, that's all I did. I put 2 lines right across. Now let's take this 1/2 and lift it over and put it on that one. Draw a line down the middle. Don't shade anything. Okay, don't change your shading. Just make the pieces by drawing the lines. Now look at these models. This has the same shading as this one, but it has more pieces here. This has the same shading as this one, but it has more pieces here. Here we do not have a common denominator, but here we have 6 pieces and 6 pieces. So what you're going to do is write how many you have here. Now we have 3 out of 6 that are shaded, out of 6 total. And we're going to add that to how many we have here, which is 2 out of 6 total. And now we have those like units. It's like the adults and the children. Nope, we just are calling them people. And now we have 3 plus 2 makes 5. And the 6 would be the units, which would be like the people, because now it's common. So the units are in common. Hooray. And we can add and we get our answer. Okay, now we can't simplify this. We'll talk about that as we go along. If it's only one apart, you won't be able to simplify it. So let's let that be good enough for now. Now let's do the next one without making 2 models, and I'll just show you how to lay it over the top. Okay, make your model for 1/3. And again, the first one, we're going to make it vertical. Shade 1, put your plus. The next one, make a box, same size, roughly, okay? But this one has to be in 5 pieces. So I'm going to make my horizontal lines 1, 2, 3, 4 lines makes 5 pieces. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I need to shade 1/5. You can shade the top or the bottom or one in the middle, but you can only shade 1. Now, if this is in thirds, but I'm going to put my fifths on top of it, then I need to create the lines 1, 2, 3, and then I always say 4, 5 because I'm making fifths. And on this one, I'm going to make thirds, so I put my 2 lines down, and now I have 1, 2, 3 thirds. Now write your new equivalent fractions below that you've created. So when I originally only had 1 out of 3 pieces, but now how many pieces do I have? Now think back, because in 3rd grade, you did this before, I know, because I taught 3rd grade for 9 years. If this is 3 and this is 5, then you have 15 pieces. You've made an array, okay? You've made an array out of these 2 numbers. We're multiplying, essentially, when we lay the pieces over each other. This one also has 15 pieces. But the shading is now different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5, matching there, are shaded. And 1, 2, 3, 3 are shaded. Now I can add. And we're done. I hope you're getting the hang of it. All right, next one. 1/4 plus 1/3. Make a box. Area model. Make another one. Okay, roughly the same size. 4ths. Draw lines down, 3 lines down to create 4 sections. Shade 1. Draw lines across. Did I say 3 sections? 4? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, make 4 sections, 3 lines. This one, it's 2 lines for 3 sections, shade 1. Okay, now we're going to take this one and lay it across. So make your lines across and take this one with the 4ths and divide this one in half, and then half the left and half the right. And you might notice that 4 times 3 is 12, and you should have created 12 parts. And how many are shaded here? We have 3. And how many are shaded here? 4. And that makes 7/12. Ta-da! All right, how about another one? These are getting fun, right? Make an area model. Make an area model. Blank. We need 1/3. Vertical lines, shade 1 section. Horizontal lines, I need to make 7 sections, so it's going to be 6 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go, 7 sections. Shade 1. Let's shade the bottom this time just for fun. Okay. Now I'm going to lay over the 7ths onto this one and the 3rds onto this one so I can create equivalent pieces. How many pieces will I have? Ask yourself that. How many pieces total will be there? 21. Let's make those pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That last line makes those 2 pieces. And this one needs to be in 3rds. Much wider and easier and faster. Now I have 21 pieces because 7 times 3 is 21. How many are shaded here? If this is the 3, this is the 7. So 7 are shaded. 7 21sts is equivalent to 1/3. So always look back. I'm creating equivalent fractions for each addend. Okay? And then this one, 1, 2, 3. 3 21sts. Okay, 21 divided by 3, 7. It's all tied together. But go ahead and add those together. You get 10 21sts. Bravo. There's your answer. Okay, There are a couple more on the next page, so turn the page. It's just making those area models. And instead of having 1 as a numerator, we have 3/4 plus 1/5. So let's make our model here. You'll see how it looks a little bit different. So this one is going to be 3/4 in our vertical model, 4 sections. Oops, I keep trying to get my lead. Oops, oh, I think it fell out and went away. All right, let's use the next one. All right, 3/4, shade 1, shade 2, shade 3. This means 3 out of 4 are shaded. Now we have 1/5. So sideways, 5 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only shade 1. Doesn't matter, top or bottom. It'll all end up shaded the right way. Now take your 5ths and lay the pieces across this one. 5ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, don't change the shading. Just lay the pieces over. And for this one, 4ths. Half the left, half the right. Now I have 4 pieces this way. So what do we have now for our common denominator? How many pieces in each one? 5 times 4 is 20. So there are 20 pieces in each one. How many are shaded here? That's kind of a lot. Well, remember, if you just made 5ths right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, it's 5, 10, 15. And if you just made 20ths here and there was only 1/5 before, this has 4ths now going down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. When you add these together, you have a lot of pieces. You have 19 out of 20 pieces. So just so you know, there's going to be a time when you could take these and look at the size of this thing that you are creating to see, yep, I do have almost an entire 20/20ths when I add these little pieces, because now they are the same size. So note that, okay? And the last one here, with both numerators having something greater than 1, make your area model. Make your area model. 2/3, 3 sections, 2 shaded. This one has 7 sections, so it's going to be tough. Make them skinny. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is always super hard for kids to make them the right size. You guys might be erasing a little bit. That's okay. Try your best. And so we need to shade 2 of the 7ths. 1 and 2. You can pick any 2. Sometimes it's easier if you leave them together, but it's really up to you. Now take the 7ths and lay them over the 3rds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then take the 3rds and lay them over the 7ths. Don't change the shading because all we did was create more pieces. Remember that the denominators, when you lay these over, you're basically multiplying. 3 times 7 is 21. I've created 21sts. And now I get to figure out how many are shaded for my numerator. So if this is 7, then 2 of them would be 14. Okay, so 7 and 7 make 14 because it's 7, 7, 7. And then this one was 3 and 3, so there's 6. Now when you add those together, 14 plus 6, you get 20. 21st, and we're done. And let's see, none of these, it said show in simplest form. I was like, what else? None of these could be simplified yet. Okay, it says simplify if possible. I think they just want you to be thinking about what it takes to simplify, or like, can we simplify? But remember what I said, if they're only 1 apart, you cannot simplify them. Now, there are still word problems left, but I'm going to put those on a different video so I can take my time with all the models. So click subscribe, come back. If you are a subscriber, the videos will just continuously play in the order that I upload them. So stay tuned. Hit subscribe and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.